We already are, unfortunately. I'm looking at the weather report for my state and it looks like I'll be ducking a whole damn tornado outbreak on Tuesday. Things like this have only gotten worse and more frequent. I'm sure hurricane season this year is going to be quite eventful too. Along with wildfires, droughts, floods, etc. It's infuriating that the people with power refuse to change when they can clearly see the wreckage and heartbreak that continuing on like this is causing. They just want to give fucking thoughts and prayers when cities are destroyed and lives are needlessly lost. Ridiculous. I think there are a lot of people who can see the suffering of others and all they can think is, gosh, I'm sure glad that's not me. And then they secretly praise God for keeping them safe. It's a self-centered world. 50 years? No, not at all. 10 years? Definitely. Absolutely. We already are. Right. Yep. All because people, in general, don't want to change. Yes, and a large portion of the problem is plain ignorance, I think. Sad, really. Yep. And we already are experiencing them. Nature is retaliating. Yeah. But I'm rooting for humanity's disappearance, so I don't mind. I don't know about disappearance, but we really need our bell rung to learn the lessons we have been unable to learn thus far. Buckle up and put your helmets on. This is really going to hurt. We might, because you know global warming and all the extra stuff like increased pandemics it will bring. But I don't know where catastrophizing ends and genuine concern starts, to be honest. I felt this way when I was younger, like teens into early 20s. The media doesn't help and social media throws it in our face even more often than before. But I got a little wiser though as I got older and realized a lot of generations experience the fear that the world is approaching the brink. I mean, you had Spanish flu, a couple world wars, Cold War, Vietnam, the gas shortage, 9/11, anthrax scare, SARS, swine flu, yada yada, and now here we are. This is not to disparage anybody's concerns or the objectively crappy stuff that's happening, but I think we'll pull through to good times. As long as enough good people don't get too comfortable and keep striving to make the world a better place, I'd say we have a chance. If not, we can always ask the penguins to help us out. Haven't called in a favor from them in a while. Adding to this, everything is scarier when you're staring down its barrel. Things are gonna be bad, but it's not gonna be the apocalypse or anything. COVID-19 has just claimed over 6 million deaths. I would call that a disaster unlike anything we have experienced since the 1940s. The potential deaths ahead of us from climate change far exceeds this level, and the cost will be astronomical compared to the COVID-19 costs. So, yes, I do believe that we will definitely experience what you fear. In perspective, cancer kills about 10 million every single year. So I see it as awfully hard to say COVID is the worst disaster since the 40s. Mao's famines killed tens of millions. I'd say that's worse. Feel like? No. No for certain? Yes. Yup. I feel the same way. People don't want to learn the lessons they're being taught. Climate and financial. Both man-made. Feel like the world is going to experience extreme disasters? We already are. I'm wondering if you actually feel it, or media wants you to feel so, and the mass media message imprinted such message in your mind? Because it sells well, or, conspiracy theory. Because some undefined, them, want you feel so and be afraid. Disasters like we never seen before? How about Black Death pandemic? COVID was a joke coming to this. How about world wars? When millions died and in some countries it was like almost 20% of the whole society. Imagine that. Every fifth U.S. citizen dies. Or maybe famine like in Ukraine in 1930s? Or mini ice age in medieval? Or maybe Krakatoa explosion? Or Tunguska? But this time it hits urban areas? World seen so much already. I don't deny climate changes, and what it brings along. But don't underestimate what humankind experienced so far. As it has become obvious to any who care to look. The biggest obstacle will be the countless millions rooting for whatever disaster befalls us. So I grew up in the same locale that I moved back to after college. I recall summers as a child, inner tubing the river and hanging out with friends. Something we never had was a smoke season. Our summers now have clear skies until the fires start and then a couple months of thick smoke. This did not used to happen as in ever. Yep. Our greediness will destroy us. Yeah, I'm convinced the world is gonna experience something drastic in the next few decades. I live in Northeast US where we have a history of heavy winters. However, the past few years have been nothing compared to how things used to be. If only there were some way we could have known this was going to happen. Like, maybe listening to the plethora of scientists who've been saying just that for like the last 40 or so years. I mean, California's fire season wasn't ever really a thing until the last 5 to 10 years and seems to get worse every year. For me it's already begun. That's just not true. Particularly in California but also in several other western states, forests evolved in the presence of fire and burned super regularly. In fact, the lack of fire over a 100-plus year period is a big part of why it's such a big problem now. Fire regimes are all out of whack, causing fires to burn bigger and hotter and killing a lot more trees than they would have otherwise done. And it's all exacerbated by hotter, drier summers due to climate change. We already are woman-shrugging light skin tone. In Australia alone in the past couple of years we've had the worst fires ever and the worst floods. We even had a couple of earthquakes and I'm pretty sure a tornado or two. If it's going to get worse than this then the next 50 years are going to be insane. Not sure how much of the population of the world will be left after all that. Probably not. The previous century started way crazier than that. Yet here we are, alive and well. It is beginning to happen already with the change in the weather. We already are man. I'm waiting for more infrastructure collapse in the USA. Most of our freeways and buildings were constructed in the 1950s with a known 70-year lifespan, but have government officials done much of anything to retrofit our crumbling overpasses and bridges? Of course not. That Florida condo building suddenly collapsing in 2021? We're gonna see more of that on top of more environmental disasters. But of course no one could have seen this coming and nothing can be done, _Sue_.